Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Shayna Norwood, and welcome back to TSU Takes. TSU Takes is a talk show that covers issues, regards, and achievements around TSU. The take of the day is gentrification around Nashville. Since we are talking about a sensitive topic, I just want to give a disclaimer that we are not here to downgrade or disregard anything of TSU in the community. So, with that being said, let's get into it. Okay, to help me unpack this topic today, I have two guests, Ashad Walker, and my second guest, Maya Taylor. Thank y'all so much for joining me today. Feel free to introduce yourself.
I'm Ashad Walker. I am a 2025 fall graduate. My major is mass comm with a track in journalism, and I'm 21.
I'm Maya Taylor. I am a recent 2024 graduate with a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communications and Journalism with a minor in History, and I'm happy to be here.
What was the first sighting of gentrification that y'all have seen?
Well, I can go first. For me, like you said, I'm a Nashville native. I live in Antioch. I've lived there my whole life. First time gentrification was I always used to visit my Aunt V, who lives over here in the TSU area, and it's when I saw a high-rise, we call them one of those like thin high-rise buildings, that it's like 3 floors of like just a rectangle straight up, but like the older houses are just a 1 floor like floor plan, and that's how I began to realize that something was going on, especially with I hate to say it, with more white people moving into a predominantly black neighborhood. That's when I was like, oh, something's going on here, but I didn't know it was called gentrification at the time.
Which camera do I look at? Oh, okay. My first site of gentrification here was like around the Hadley area. They built like a high-rise apartments like across it, and in the neighborhood beside it, but it's like right next to like houses that have been there for a while, or like low income housing, and yeah, and also a lot of like white people, like she said, like jogging and stuff. Like, why are you jogging by the marathon?
It's very it's a stark difference between what used to be like. Usually people wouldn't be running around Hadley at like 9 p.m. at night due to safety issues, but people jog with their kids and their dogs or whatever.
They play kickball at Hadley.
Yeah, I'm like, that's a new version of safety. Wow,
but the high rise across from Hadley, those were like my freshman year. Those weren't there, and then I came back sophomore year and they were built. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, and with the housing costs, so I know since of course TSU doesn't offer a lot of spaces for students, so some students are caused to live off campus. However, but the way rent is going, it's pretty high. So even for instance, the ones across from Hadley, I looked at those prices. They're not going nothing under $1,200. So like, how do you feel about the housing situation outside of school housing?
Well, with it being like, if you're a student here at TSU, like it's already hard enough trying to have a job and focus on your academics, and the cost of rent. I know one of my friends who. She had an apartment off campus, and she was able to get it during COVID, so it was cheaper. But she was still paying at least, I think, $1,300 a month for like just 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, like just simple living. And like it's to the point where like, because I'm outside of college, I still currently like I stay with my mom just to be able to save up on money, because I know rent is gonna cost a majority of my future paycheck for my jobs.
I don't live on campus, but my apartment is like the same amount as like what you would pay for the dorms here. So I think it depends on what apartment complex you're in and like the model of your apartment. Because I have a studio apartment and mine is not like in the 10,000s. So
yeah. Plus, it also depends on what area you stay in of Nashville. If it's more towards like the TSU area, especially with newer gentrification, you'll probably find higher prices. Unless it's more like near, like Ashad said earlier, with like the houses that have been there for years and things along those lines. Those might be a bit cheaper to rent, but people are renting like houses nowadays, like townhouses, more than even apartments, just because of the costs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you guys know that TSU, we are in a community where it's predominantly black. So have you seen any neighborhood changes, such as like Jefferson Street?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like we said, the white people jogging and like playing kickball and stuff at Hadley, and I haven't seen any changes with like different like food places, but it's just the people and the like you said, community.
Yeah, it's more like businesses are trying to turn and cater towards more of like the incoming like white people who are coming into the neighborhood, other than the community that they've had their sustain their business off of for the past like 40 or less than 40 years or so.
Yeah. One of the changes I have seen, my heart is
R.I.P.
my heart is really just wilting for this is the Family Dollars. If you know that there was two Family Dollars one sitting on Jefferson Street and the other one I can't really remember which street that is, but they closed both of them. And if you know that was main resources for TSU students to get the necessities that they need, because we don't have anything closer to the school. So for those to be closed down, we still don't know what's going to be right there. They abandoned right now, but I fear that it's going to be something that it's not going to cater towards us, because Family Dollar is an establishment that is put into low income neighborhoods for the people that lives in the neighborhood. So did you want to talk on Jefferson Street, like the history on
Yeah,
Jefferson
of course,
Street?
I'd love to. So Jefferson Street used to be a really big booming area, especially between 1935 and 1965. It was known mostly as a music district due to clubs that were famous down here, with Etta James, Aretha Franklin, Little Richard playing here, Jimi Hendrix, along those lines. It became a very popular music district. Now, about 50 or 40 years ago, the I-40 interstate was put in, completely decimating and displacing around 1,000 black residents, which also completely ruined the economic infrastructure that was made at the time, which meant more gentrification now that the highway was put in. If you've noticed, like, a lot of, like, honestly, if you notice, like those high-rise buildings, a lot of, like you said, the lower income businesses closing because they're probably going to make more expensive places to cater to the new incoming, like, economic flush that's coming in. But the culture that people don't realize of Jefferson Street is, like, it used to be such a booming spot for African American businesses and African American culture, and because of the interstate, Jefferson Street has become known as more of a rundown area, which is not something you want to think of it as, because Jefferson Street houses TSU, Meharry, like Fisk, ABC, all of those nearby HBCUs, and we're known as being in a bad area when it's not really our fault, because during the time that Jefferson Street was booming, they were neglected by the state and the county themselves, and obviously there was racism internally that caused the interstate to be placed there instead of in a white neighborhood per se. So
I have something to add to that, because I had just learned about that, and the highway is like, as we can see, a lot of like our community on Jefferson Street, the highway is above the houses and the businesses, and it's things like people throwing out their trash on the highway and stuff. It's going into our community's yards and things like that, which makes it look even more rundown. So on top of, like she said, the history and what's going on right now, it's just getting,
worse.
Worse, yeah.
So that kind of falls into how this affects, not like, since Jefferson Street is a very big thing for us at TSU, how does that run into the university and how we are affected as a university?
I think with like more gentrification and changes, there's obviously going to be probably a larger wave of non-black or non-people of color students coming to TSU in the next few years, especially since affirmative action has been canceled, which means there's no longer a minority scholarship. But this area of Jefferson Street has been seen as a kind of booming area for those high-rises and Airbnbs. So I think honestly it's going to be probably a lot more Caucasians in the area. I personally don't think TSU will change just because of the alumni support and like the fact that we really hold this school true as a HBCU, not just because of the academics, just because it's always been a safe spot for African American students to like kind of try and learn academically here. And I hate to say it, like the HBCU experience is altered when there's more white people added, so I feel like the experience for students might be a bit altered, and also less opportunities around the areas. Like how you said, Family Dollar used to be right up the street for us with all our necessities. Now students will have to drive off the interstate to Walmart, and if they don't have a car, it's no longer like a walkable place to go to like Family Dollar was up the street. So it's now costing students Uber money, or having to pay for buses, or like having to ask their friends for rides to be able to even go get groceries for day-to-day stuff.
Okay.
Oh no, that was good. That was good.
And so with
I had the same thing.
All right. So with resources being limited to students, do you think this will affect TSU's attendance rate? Like, for not for the students that attend here now, but you know, when you go on your college tour, you're looking not only just at the university but the community that surrounds it. So it's like, okay, well, I don't have access to this. This don't look like it's supposed to be here. So how do you think the attendance rate is going to be as we go through the years?
I think like the interest is gonna go down because I mean I didn't like get a tour of the school, but I think it would have changed my perception if I got a tour. But I think the attendance, not only like with people coming in, but I think like by like people's like second semester, we've seen that a lot of times they decide to leave because not only the school itself, but the area, and people have been in a lot of unsafe situations and a lot of life-threatening situations that I'm blessed to not have experienced. But I think, you know, the area is very concerning for not the students, but also parents sending their students here, because when you send your child to college, you want them to be successful and safe, but you can't do that if you're getting an alert on your phone all the time about things happening like that. So
Yeah.
I think that would change the attendance for sure.
I completely agree, honestly. As I'm a COVID student who had just recently graduated, and there have always been a few safety concerns here and there with it being the Jefferson Street area. And I know my mom would never send me anywhere she didn't feel comfortable sending me to, but of course there's been instances, like Ashad said, where like my freshman year, a crackhead from Marathon broke into my dorm and got as high as the 5th floor before the cops got her out. And when I lived in the Jefferson Flats during homecoming, there was somebody popped off at least 30 rounds of an AK-47, I believe, right outside of our hall, and I had to make sure that my roommate's side of the wall didn't have any bullet holes in it, which was kind of embarrassing to have to explain to my mom, be like, yeah, they were shooting nearby. And so I think attendance-wise, if the area surrounding campus doesn't look like it would be safe, if I had a shot, I wouldn't send them over here. And also how the school is going now, like just academic and infrastructure-wise, I think it'll probably go down unless in the next few years the gentrification makes this area look like completely like brand new, or it upgrades some of the areas around here. Attendance is probably going to lower a bit.
Okay.
But I will say though, I think people are more used to things like this with HBCUs because HBCUs are literally like always like in the dirt country or in the hood.
Yeah.
Or like underfunded.
Yeah, so it shouldn't be something that we're used to, but I think that
we're not surprised
we
by
are
it.
used. Yeah, we're not surprised, and we are used to it.
Definitely. And we know that gentrification might seem like a bad look on like how there are changes in neighborhoods, but do you guys think that it's any positive, like the changes having a positive effect on not just the community but the school as well?
I think like I think for gentrification, I don't think we would need like different homes. I feel like something as good as like different food options, because like on Jefferson Street, our food options is literally like, just chicken.
Yeah.
Like I think it would be I think it would be like I think a good benefit of gentrification would be for food and like grocery stores that are accessible. But I don't know about like I don't think there's a positive of building different houses, because ultimately you're moving people that have been there for years out of their own neighborhood and community that they have grown accustomed to.
It's kind of hard to try and see the positives of gentrification, only because the only positive that people would consider for gentrification is that white people are more comfortable in black areas. And like something I found out when I took a Black History of Nashville course was the home of Z. Alexander Luby, who was a famous civil rights activist in Nashville. His home that had been there, and people were trying to make it like a memorial or have a landmark put there. It's been torn down, and a high-rise Airbnb home is going to be put there instead. And it's kind of a bit like shocking to just see like how quickly the history and like the culture of Jefferson Street has been like uprooted just for white comfortability. And it may be like in the near future, of course, it might be safer of stuff, but that's only because the incoming non-people of color are coming in because they don't feel safe. It's never been a concern when us in the area or students were complaining about crackheads being near campus, lack of safety, lack of resources surrounding campus or opportunities for students. It really shows kind of what gets more care. So like, unfortunately, the positive of gentrification is that people will care more about Jefferson Street and possibly nearby HBCUs, but it's at the cost of the black culture that built it.
That's true. And when I was thinking about the positive, I was going to say, like, of course, them building new stores, like replacing the Family Dollar with a store, kind of like we can't say Whole Foods because when you build a Whole Foods, you have to pay Whole Food prices. We are in a, we are college students.
Well, it's like an Aldi's. Like an Aldi's.
Yeah, like an
Aldi's
Aldi's.
would be
See,
great.
it's like it's certain stuff, but it's like sometimes they don't go the extra mile to do what's needed for the community around them. You might think that, oh yeah, well they need a grocery store. We didn't need that one. We didn't need something like, of course, Walmart might be a little bit more accessible and more reliable for college students, but we have to cater to the community. So just throwing a random store, like you said, to kind of draw more like people that are not of color in and make them feel safer is kind of not the way to go. So it kind of like it alters the positiveness of the situation, but I get exactly what you're saying.
Absolutely.
So with Nashville being a very, very big growing city, how do you think, what would be your prediction of the future changes within, like, let's just say the 5-10 years from now?
I would hope our school is still at HBCU.
Yeah.
But I do see that, because I see it when I come back from break, that it's new apartments, new homes built. So I think that, like, the little, like, one-story houses around the neighborhood, I feel like those are going to end up being, like she said, the skinny high-rise Airbnb-style apartments. So I think that would change, but I really don't think that the black community of Jefferson Street would, like, I think we're still going to be here. And I think it's not going to be, like, completely white. But I think, but I also think that it would bring, like, different black people to the area, like, that maybe can afford better homes than the ones that's around. They can come and then maybe their kids go to Tennessee State and things like that. So hopefully in 5 or 10 years, we still have our school and our community, and hopefully we still have the things that we are used to seeing when we were here. But I do think that the housing around is going to be very different.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I think the housing most definitely is like the main thing that's going to change, and of course, like some nearby businesses unfortunately like won't survive the like new incoming wave of people. But I do think at least within the next 5 to 10 years, it'll possibly become like an even safer area, which is it's a positive, but at an unfortunate cost. And there's like a study I saw that like 100 people are moving into Nashville every single day.
Yeah.
And there is a new campaign that just got finished where it's going to be a bus system for TSU students to be able to get around Nashville quicker within the next year or two. I think it'll be established. So I think that will also give TSU students more opportunities to try and get out of the Jefferson area for like groceries and further opportunities like that. But I would hope within the next 5 to 10 years there's at least more of a pour into resources for Jefferson Street, because it was once a booming community, and the fact that it's now seen as this rundown area just kind of destroys the image of like what once was. And like obviously we'll never go back to when like Aretha Franklin and Jimi Hendrix were performing there, but it would be nice to not have to say, oh yeah, I stay off of Jefferson Street, and someone go, oh, and like grimace a bit at it. It's not nice to say when you come from an area that you kind of try and hold with pride, and somebody's like, oh, that seems terrible that you stay there. And you're like, no, it's actually a great community. It's just not given the opportunity and the spotlight that it deserves.
I definitely feel the same way about the housing. Yeah, I can see it now because the way that, like you said, a new home is being built almost every day. Like,
and quickly. They do it quickly.
Yes. Like, you will literally, by the time the weekend is over, a new one is built. And it's just crazy because it's like, even like the little landmarks such as like the churches that has been here around the campus, just like you said on Jefferson Street, the little stores, they might not make it, but hopefully, hopefully they will. But it's like, it's really changes that it's like, well, we can't really predict the future, but we already see what's going on. But yeah, hopefully the culture won't vanish or any of like the history won't vanish, but it just probably just bring, I don't know. Yeah. So that's all I can say is we don't know the unknown, but we see the changes now. But I just that's all that I have for y'all today. Thank y'all so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
this was fun.
Thank you. So, well, that's all that we have for TSU Takes. See you next time.